What do you think about fake musical theatre fans? Now, let me
Uh,
explain that. So, what
mm,
I mean by that is, and I would consider myself at some point part of this group, in that there are some that there a lot of the times there is a negative attitude assumed to people that don't know many shows, and therefore they're about five, six, seven of the more popular
right.
shows that they
Okay.
know and love. And to a certain extent, you could consider me as maybe part of that. I'd like to say I'm
Okay.
not.
No, I
But
don't think you are.
what opinion do you have
I
on, because this has been something that like I've been thinking about quite a lot, especially because I definitely, maybe I'm not now, but I definitely used to be that.
I don't mind. So you mean like people that? Oh, what's your favorite song from Hamilton? Alexander Hamilton. Okay, well that's original. I so it depends if they're claiming to be a like through and through musical theatre fan, and they're not. Then I'd be like, don't say that you are, and then like when I ask you a question about your favorite song in Hamilton, you say Alexander Hamilton. Like it depends how they put themselves across, because you couldn't make videos like you or I do about these things without knowing it properly.
Hmm.
So I think it's very easy to tell. Like you couldn't do your song rankings without knowing proper.
You literally cannot rank a musical without knowing every
Don't
song pretty well.
Yeah, and it's the same with like it's the same with not even just ranking songs. Like say you do like I did a theory about Christoph's origin. I couldn't have done that if I didn't know that franchise through and through. So I think if they're trying to portray themselves as being a big fan of something and they're not, then what's the point? You're just like either actually like look into it and see if you like it properly, or don't claim to like it.
I think the best analogy I could think of that sums up my opinion is if an Iron Man fan claimed to be like an MCU fan. And what I would say
Okay.
by that is, say that there are two different people. They both just discovered the first Iron Man film.
Okay.
One of those people is like, okay, I'm a fan of the MCU now. I'm
Yeah.
going to watch, like, maybe not all of the films, but I'm going to watch the films I'm interested in,
Yeah.
and I'm going to become part of that lore. If this if
Right.
this if this guy's like, right, I'm going to watch, I might watch the Iron Man sequels. I'm an MCU fan. I don't believe that to be an MCU fan. I think my idea with that is that I don't think someone should be discouraged because they don't know shows. I also don't think if someone loves Hamilton and that's
Yeah.
it, no, they shouldn't be called a musical theatre fan, but they shouldn't be discouraged from liking that thing. And
Oh no,
also,
no.
I think everyone is at different points of their journey.
Yes.
And my main point of this segment is that I believe there is a very toxic attitude towards people that don't know that many shows, are only getting into musical theatre.
I
And I think that's an attitude that I'd like to see stop.
Yeah, I think it's like that with a lot of things. Like you could name any fandom or anything in the world, like even sports, and there's gonna be like the only way to say it's like a pure blood idea around that. It's literally like it is like Harry Potter, where there is a literal pure blood. It's like, do you know, like if it's like if you took an MCU quiz and said, what are the like, what's the name of the accords that they have to put into place after the events of Age of Ultron? If you don't know that, that's like back lore of MC. That isn't a massive plot point. The name doesn't matter, so
That's
you
one
shouldn't
thing
be
in one film.
discouraged.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you can still say you love the MCU even if you don't know these. There are like three tiers of fan. There's like the casual viewer. There's I love the MCU, and then there's I will go deep into the lore of the MCU. And I think it's with anything. Yeah, like you said, you can like one musical, but don't call yourself a musical theatre fan then necessarily. or you can be like, you can know every musical, every song inside and out, but you're not any different to the like person who only likes Hamilton or only likes In the Heights. It's, yeah, I know what you mean. There shouldn't be a discriminative like attitude around that. It just let people enjoy what they want to enjoy.
I mean, for me, I think this is probably where some would argue I probably fall into the more fake fan element, is
Okay.
that a lot of the times there is a very negative attitude to those who haven't found necessarily their musical niche, like only they've only yet discovered things that are more popular. So for example, like if someone's to ask me, it's a boring question, so I didn't really ask you it as part of the Q&A, but if someone was to ask, if someone was to like ask me what's your favorite musical, I'm like, an answer I would probably give a lot would probably be something like Book of Mormon, or I'd probably say In the Heights quite a lot. But a lot of people would look at that and go, well, that's just the obvious musical. Like, have you not kind of like discovered? It's one of those things where I feel like for newer fans of musical theatre, they can sometimes feel judged because they haven't discovered the less popular shows. Because whenever they look for recommendations,
it's always going to be the popular
things because more people are recommending it to them. It's just the law of averages.
Yeah, that's true.
What are your thoughts on that?
What as like recommending or like, so the problem is musicals only get popular for like three reasons. Either they've got celebrities backing it or in it. So say like if Neil Patrick Harris showed up in a Broadway musical that was new, that musical is instantly going to be popular because you've got a big name doing it. That's like when they did Hamilton and they had like, but you can be famous within like the musical theatre industry without being famous anywhere else. So like Daveed Digg didn't do it, but he was in films before. And you had like Chris Jackson had worked with Lynn before, so you had quite a lot of people that were well known in one thing. And obviously it was a unique story. But because you have these things like Book of Mormon, where you still got big names, like Josh Gad was is and was still massive. So like even when he did that, it didn't get as popular. So it's like it just happens to. It's just like luck as to what you find and where. I couldn't how I discovered Book of Mormon. I have no idea. I just must just come across it one day, and it's just. I know what I mean. It's very toxic, and I get worried about trying to be a big part of a fandom because I don't want someone to go, "Oh, that's wrong. You've got that wrong." Like in my Harry Potter video where I ranked the characters ages ago, I got a comment saying like, "Oh, how could you not know that Rita Skeeter edited for this and not this?" I was like, "Because it doesn't matter. Like it's not a big deal." But they were like, "You call yourself a Harry Potter fan? You didn't know that she edited for this and not that?" I was like, "Well, it's irrelevant, really."
That's one of the bad things is that when someone knows something better than you do, then they feel like they have that power over you. Like, I think for me, my best example is probably something like Doctor Who, where like in terms of like that fandom, I'm probably one of like the most knowledgeable, the most like I've watched all of that content. I'm like very involved in like the lore and like that whole universe. But then it takes someone like that to then go on someone else's video about that and then pick on something that makes a mistake.
It's just there's things like that. I'm like, it is like we said about the Sokovia Accords. It doesn't matter. That's why I got it wrong, because I'm not the biggest fan. I like Harry Potter, but I'm a bigger fan of the MCU than I am Harry Potter because there's more to the MCU.
I mean, for example, me as a person, I'm more interested in what you think about the Sokovia Accords and whether you think Cap or Tony was right than whether you can name the correct accord and what film they were in. And
as long as you know what it does, like it people just pick up on the like smallest things. It's like it doesn't matter. You don't need to. You can be a fan of something without knowing the ins and outs of the like back lore of it.
Exactly.
It's a stressful situation. It's a stressful life.
Well, that could end up as its own video.
Oh, that'd be good.
This is Willany, and if you're not already subscribed to the Nerdy Brit, right, you should be. Right? If you're not, you're a loser too.